Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for. No, please have the music. Yeah. So the music which has been playing since morning is intentional. Hello everyone, welcome again, and thank you. We are grateful to all of you for being here, customers, partners. We have an eminent panel who will be up next, and that puts a lot of pressure on me. My name is Shantanu, and I've joined SPAN Every India 5 months ago to take responsibility for digital transformation. In terms of a personal introduction, I'm a technologist by education and by the initial part of my career. Have tried a little bit to move onto the business technology side the last few years, and also visit B schools as a guest lecturer whenever they are willing to have me. A couple of them, are very kind and they say okay. And I come from a family of artists. So the painting that you see there is my father's, and I just thought that it would be a good way to start. So digital to me is about business, technology, and the arts, the fine arts, performing arts, and various types of aesthetic aspects of being human, really coming together. IVK spoke a little bit this morning. I wish he was here, but there were some beautiful examples that he gave. And where's the... Okay, it's here. And I just wanted to start with the phrase, a modified phrase, which is, I think, therefore I am. And I guess it is, I create, therefore I am. What I wanted to do is just to start with, I have a request. No, it's a part of the session. So I have a request. Yeah? Little. So I have a request, which is that for just 1 minute, I would request very humbly the audience, can we close our eyes for 1 minute, 60 seconds? Can we close our eyes and please concentrate only on the music? And I'm not going to speak for that 1 minute, please. Thank you so much. However busy, our life gets, I think we can always spare a minute. And the music is a part of the session. I'll touch upon it in a moment. But I think, therefore I am, modified. I create, therefore I am. And just to start off with a little quiz, can anyone, take a guess in terms of what's the difference between these two pieces of text? Anyone from the audience, please. It's a weather report. I'll take about 20 seconds. Anyone?
The left one is very specific with the date and the level. The right one does not have the date and it's at a probably.
There's more imagination that feel.
On the left one?
The right.
On the right one?
The right one is more about what it will be.
Sure. Okay. Very interesting. So, we have short time, so I'll come to the answer straight away. Otherwise, I like to stretch this a little bit. The left paragraph is generated through software. The right paragraph is by a human being.
Okay.
And the technology area is called natural language generation. It's a subset of natural language processing, where we are better aware of text analytics, which IVK spoke about, but text generation with output extremely similar to that of a human being is a little lesser known, but not just an area of research, a lot of practical applications already starting. The digital future, and it's possible machines may replace us. Any guesses on who's the figure? I hope.
Rajnikant.
No, Tanya came close. R2D2 is the little guy.
C3PO.
This is C3PO, right? For Star Wars fans, the protocol droid C3PO, and yes, we're waiting. My whole family is a big fan of the Star Wars movies. We're waiting for the next one. But while there is a chance that machines may replace us, it may not be in all area. We need to rediscover what makes us different. So a few more paintings from the family, archives, and again, just wanted in terms of audience participation, what is it that really differentiates us, right? When we look at man versus machine or women versus machine, to be emotions, yeah, and
Creativity,
yeah,
imagination.
imagination, creativity, and
Light.
thank you, Bala. Ego. Any other quick ones? Yes, Prashant. Life, experience. All right. Well, innovation, intuition, creativity, emotions, and the concept of mindfulness, that 1 minute that we spent in closing our eyes and listening to the music, it's about the remarkable human ability, often hard to find these days, of being in the present moment, not in the past, not in the future, and about mindfulness, right? And why is all this becoming increasingly important? Because in the digital age, right, we are seeing all around us a future where repetitive tasks are getting automated, where any activities which can be done by machines, software or hardware or a combination, will be done by them. And it's very important for us to recognize that, and it's very important for us to understand that the way to coexist with software and hardware, with machines and with technology at the end of the day, is to go back to what makes us really human. So, I love to relate this anecdote about an interview. I've been running innovation teams for some time now, about an interview that I was conducting, and the candidate had said in their resume, trained in Indian classical music. So towards the end of the interview, I said, there's one more question, and we were on an audio conference. So he said, yes, Shantanu, what's that? And I said, you're trained in Indian classical music, and there is a raga, there is a, basically a pattern of music. It's called ragas in Indian music. I said, there's a raga called Rag Yaman, which I'm sure you would have learned. Can you sing, 2 lines based on that? And there was a stunned silence. And then the question was, is this a part of the interview? And I said, perhaps one of the most important parts. He was a sport, so he actually did. Then he asked me, why did you ask me that question? And I said that the type of work that we do as innovators, the right brain aspects of thinking are extremely critical, and it's really what sets us apart. It's really what is the future of our race, forget companies and organizations. And I do believe that this is not theory and distant future. I do believe this is happening right here, right now. So for those of us, my daughter is 11, and I keep telling my wife that if she's interested in art, she sketches pretty well, like most children do, right? Most children are creative, and after that they go to school. And then, the second nail in the coffin, they go to college, right? and then they come out and work in all our companies. So, sorry.
And then they get married.
All right. So personally, I'm optimistic. Personally, I'm optimistic, and I do feel that some of these aspects need to be rediscovered. Now, some of you have seen these slides before, but it's a quick quiz for those of you who haven't. So easy one, but who's this?
Uber.
Yeah, and
Oh, you're Walmart.
it's not Amazon. GMV is gross merchandise volumes.
That could be the it's Alibaba.
Alibaba.
Yes, absolutely. The world's largest photo company today.
Oh, yeah, we know that.
The world's largest media company today.
YouTube.
Facebook, YouTube.
The world's largest accommodation provider. Somebody touched upon it yesterday.
Airbnb.
In terms of viewership, world's largest television network today.
Netflix.
Yeah. None of them existed 15 years ago, and all of them identify themselves as tech companies, technology companies. I was having this interesting discussion with Bala yesterday. I do believe that the future of technology is business, and the future of business is technology. I do believe that our industry has been guilty of doing a lot of technology for technology's sake. You remember yesterday I spoke with you about this customer I was visiting, and they had a 60-70 member team building some sort of a Java framework which actually already existed through a vendor, right? And there were 60-70 people doing all that all over again. But I think those days are gone, and I think the world's changed in terms of being much more focused on what's the business problem that you're trying to solve, and how can technology help you to solve that problem. And both are getting intermingled like never before. Though my passion is technology, I would be the first person to say, don't solve the problem before you define it. And many of us from a technology side are guilty of doing that. It's interesting how difficult it is for people with a technology background to define the problem they're trying to solve. All of us have been through that, maybe in 2 or 3 lines, right? Incredibly difficult. So sometimes, not always, the past is a glimpse into the future. But when you look at something called the Human Social Development Index, which is essentially defined by an anthropologist called Ian Morris, essentially about the human capacity to solve problems, right? And make the general environment around ourselves better, whether work or life. When you look at the growth of the Human Social Development Index across several thousand years, there's a strange thing which happens. So for about 7,500 years of human history, the growth is pretty slow, and we're talking about the discovery of fire, the invention of the wheel, and so on and so forth. But somewhere around that time, something happened which bent the curve of human progress almost at a 90-degree angle if you look at it over the last 8 to 10,000 years, right? Any guesses?
Renaissance?
Close. There's a clue. No, so the clue is 1775, thereabouts.
Industrial Revolution or whatever.
Yes. So it's essentially about the Industrial Revolution. But just an example of how quickly things can change, right? Markets are changing. I mentioned about millennials. When that generation enters and the next generation enters the workplace, it's redefining entire markets, right? And for those businesses and enterprises who aren't ready, there's a shake-up that's likely over the next 10, 15, 20 years. Nothing much we can do about it except prepare. Customer needs are changing, right? So again, as I gave the example, there are customers who today expect customer service to happen on social media. There are customers who expect that cycle times should be a few hours. So when I apply for a loan from a bank, why should it take 10, 15, 20 days for my loan to get sanctioned? and the bank will say, oh, it's because of the legacy systems I have. And, a 22, 23-year-old, maybe a 25, 30-year-old will say, fine, I'll go to the next bank, and they're saying that they'll get the loan sanctioned in 24 hours, for example, because their IT systems are different. So it's very interesting, but, we shouldn't be in a situation, I feel, where IT becomes the reason for business failure. It should be the other way around, right? Technology should be the reason why businesses succeed. So again, something to keep in mind, not an easy question to answer. Operations, I remember in one of my previous roles, there's a company by the name, European company by the name of Carlsberg, pretty well known, right, for certain beverages that they produce. They were outsourcing their finance and accounting operations, business process operations. 600 people type of work, right? In that industry, it's counted in terms of headcount. But the intent was to get over a 5-year period, 600 people's work done with 250 people over a 5-year period through the leverage of an intelligent digital assistant. Right, that was the platform that was conceptualized, and this was a part of the contract as well. Very interesting, but the idea was an intelligent digital assistant, a digital platform which will help these process associates do twice and thrice the amount of work that they normally do. Pradeep, any question? No. Workforce expectations are changing, and again, one example, very typical example, is approval workflows. You expect enterprise applications to be mobile enabled today. Sometimes, email approvals aren't enough. Even if you have an email approval, it's possible, to do some text analytics and get into the system and convert it into a system approval. Or at the very least, workforce will expect that, why can't the manager approve this on this smartphone in about 15 or 20 minutes? So workforce expectations are changing. Those 20-year-olds are going to say, why can't I use my smartphone at work? Why can't I bring my home tablet to work? And so on. And strategy, right, is getting transformed. My favorite example is retail. And today, as a retailer, if digital is not a part of the business strategy, then you're more or less dead. Not saying that the future of retail or any sector for that matter is digital only. To me, digital is about the interplay between the virtual and the physical worlds, and it's about how they come together. But fact of the matter is that regardless of the sector that you're in, if digital is not a part of the strategy, it's going to get pretty tricky. On a side note, one of the things that I've been trying to do is I've been lobbying with all my friends and colleagues who lead the respective business units in the company to have digital as a part of their strategy. And I feel that as a company we'll succeed when every single BU has digital as a core element from a strategy perspective. It's something that we're trying to do as a company as well. So there was always a line between business and technology, but what's happening to that line? So business and technology are getting mixed up, as I said, and when you look at a company like Tesla, and there was an ad, there was a report this morning's newspaper about Tesla's driverless car, for example. And you wonder, are they an automotive company or are they a technology company? And I guess Elon Musk would probably say maybe a bit of both, might say more of a technology company rather than anything else.
It's a robot, not a car.
For example, yeah. And the interesting part again is that I had this conversation about driverless cars. I feel the world over we have so many vehicles on the road that probably we should be thinking of carless drivers rather than driverless cars. So reduce the number of cars on the road, right? Public transportation and so on is the need of the hour.
1 second.
Yeah.
The previous slide. Maybe you should add point 7. Lifestyle is also changing completely.
Yeah, absolutely. On a personal note, but this was a little more in terms of the corporate context, but taken, point
Even
noted.
in corporate.
Sure.
You won't have people coming to work anymore.
Sure. So what are the new imperatives for the digital age? And Guru's just gently reminded me of the time. And we are looking at, not by coincidence, what we feel are the new imperatives for the digital age also happen to be our focus areas as a company. So the technology focus, all of us are most of us are technologists in the room, so we know that needs to continue, and technology is all around us. We can't run away from it, right? So might as well embrace it and figure out how can we leverage technology to the best extent we can. But it's about leveraging technology across the front, middle, and back office to help in transforming the customer experience through digital, right? And that gives you your top line growth. And it's about making operations increasingly efficient through digital. And that's the example of the intelligent digital assistant that I gave. And it's about both of these being closely linked, right? So you can't have one without the other. You have a mobile app intended to improve the customer experience, and you don't fix your business process at the back end. It'll be difficult to keep your customers happy. From a technology perspective, when you look at IT teams, right? IT teams are not out of the picture. So security becomes increasingly important. Increased number of devices, increased number of vulnerabilities and threats. Modernization is very important. Chris, you and I were chatting about this yesterday, right? So a lot of legacy can't be thrown away, right? Can you have wrapper patterns in order to integrate? Can you figure out what could be lifted and shifted? Can you figure out what could be retired and so on? Absolutely critical, right? Probably can't be avoided as far as the future is concerned. And then engineering is essentially about those of you who have products of your own, software products and platforms of your own, where there might be some engineering and re-engineering needed, keeping digital in mind. The applicability is across the globe, across industry sectors, across B2B, B2C, across B2B2C was the term which was used in the morning session, and across enterprises of all sizes, right? So customer experience on the one side, operational excellence on the other side, and from a business perspective, these would be the two areas to look at in terms of new imperatives. When we look at digital customer experience, what really does it mean? And we start off with customer interactions with a brand happen across various channels. These are not transactional, right? They're not one-off. They're continuous. They're sustained over time. And customer experience is the aggregate of the emotions and the sentiments. What the customer feels about those interactions and about the brand. Customer experience management is the discipline to design the customer experience, implement the right customer experience that you've designed, measure the customer experience, analyze what's actually happening on the ground, and improve, right? And then finally, when we talk about the digital age, it's about an omni-channel customer experience. I remember a discussion with Royal Bank of Scotland where they were talking about the need for a customer to begin a transaction on one channel, continue it on another. You start off on the phone and make an inquiry for a new product, say a co-branded credit card. You continue the transaction over chat, right? And you continue where you left off. And then you walk into a bank branch and they know that you're interested in that particular product and you've had prior conversations. And maybe you close there or you close maybe over a social media channel. But a consistent cross-channel customer experience. Also, it's important for personalization to happen. So, the manner in which communication happens to me should be different from any of you, and so on. It's also very interesting to see, in our opinion, the future of digital customer experience is really about brands and customers establishing relationships between themselves, and it's about the concept of engagement, which is essentially a bidirectional dialogue, again applicable across industry sectors. Now, a lot of people will say, isn't customer experience the same as user experience, right? And front-end development and stuff like that. But the interesting part, and I was just having a discussion with Jayant, who's one of our panelists, is if you look at the last 15, 20 years or earlier, 2 decades, 75% of CEOs surveyed would have said that primary focus is operational efficiencies, cost cutting, and so on and so forth, right? Streamlining operations. Several of them do say the same thing, but there's this interesting research report from IBM, which I was going through last year, about 9,000 CEOs surveyed over the world. about 79% of them said the primary focus for them, business priority for them, is customer experience. And they were saying that operations is a hygiene factor as of now. So then, what's the business overview, right, and impact? Any customer's journey with any brand across any sector can be defined over 3 phases: the pre-transaction phase, during transaction phase, and the post-transaction phase. And customer value and business value gets created essentially at 3 simple levels. At the first level is your product or service meeting customer needs. At the second level, are you making it easy to do business with you? Extremely important in the B2B context. Customer experience is not just about B2C. It also applies in B2B. But are you making it an unforgettable experience, right? And are you getting into a situation where people want to do business with you? They keep coming back. And the business impact is fairly obvious. Customer acquisition, increased wallet share per customer, obviously, reduced churn in terms of customers leaving you. Who wants customers to leave, right? And loyalty and advocacy. Advocacy is the holy grail of customer experience and marketing, really, because wouldn't it be wonderful if you could retain the size of your marketing budget but get much more marketing done through your customers doing marketing for you and customers advocating your products and services. So the business impact of customer experience across industry sectors, again, is significant. But measuring and monitoring customer experience in that same survey that I spoke about was a primary concern, because look and feel, intuition, emotions, how do you measure them, right? Is the primary question which people ask. And then across marketing, sales, and service, there are metrics which could be used in terms of translating a lot of that look and feel stuff into numbers. We don't have time to go through all these right now, but if I were to take just 2 examples, one is in terms of TOMA, or top of mind awareness and brand recall, fairly well known in the advertising world, right? Extremely important, possible to measure. And then, as far as sales are concerned, there is a concept called the customer effort score. Anand was telling me that it took you 40 minutes to check into your hotel day before yesterday. Right. So very high customer effort score, for example. And customer effort score, sorry?
5 people are working on it.
For example. So customer effort score is essentially to get basic stuff done, right? How much effort does it take the customer? How easy are you making it for the customer to do business with you? As far as service is concerned, Net Promoter Score, most of us are aware. My opinion, it's remarkable how many companies focus on CSAT and how few companies focus on Net Promoter Score. We're in an age where is it enough just to measure whether customers are satisfied? You want to measure, how many are your promoters, how many are your detractors, subtract the 2, divide by the total number of customers you have, and hey there, you have a decent metric. How many of your customers are willing to give you references, right? How many of our customers are willing to participate in your growth? Very interesting metric. Some companies track it on a very regular basis. When we look at operational excellence, Guru, I'll need 2 or 3 minutes more. When we look at operational excellence and the business overview and impact, we start off, if we remember the origins of our industry, with systems of record, right? And this is where we had a lot of work getting done in the 80s and 90s. Many of us have participated in several of these projects. Transaction-based focus, transaction-based systems, right? Problems related to the concept of a swivel chair approach, because you've got data residing in multiple systems, and you've got users who need to pull out that data, from one application, then swivel around to the next, and swivel around to the next, and so on. Pretty inefficient. Still happens for those of us who have, legacy systems. But greater business value can be created by moving into systems of engagement, which are much more user-centric, right? And there you have the concept of focusing on the business process layer and the workers who interact with the business process. If your process complexity is low, there's opportunities to automate, and that's where we have straight-through processing, for example. Process complexity is high. You've got people as a part of the process, specialists, underwriting. Yesterday there was a demo there. People who can't be replaced, right? Human judgment is important, shouldn't be replaced. But then, can you leverage digital to make their life better, to help them to take smarter decisions, faster decisions, right? Help them to work at scale. So that's what's happening on the right side of that graph. But even greater value, and that's what's happening today and in the future, is through systems of insight, which is essentially about decision systems, analytics, inferencing systems, and so on and so forth. Software getting smarter, software being able to crunch large volumes of data, right, and help you as far as business decisions are concerned. Business impact, in terms of digital operational excellence, obviously cycle times, right? So you have opportunities to crash cycle times down from say 15 or 20 days to maybe a day or less than a day, a few hours. Productivity, obviously, because we're talking about many folds increase in productivity. Remember the first machine age, something similar happening right now. We're talking about efficiency going up, worker efficiency going up. We're talking about increased throughput, claims processing, same size team of claims handlers, right? 4 times the number of claims which can be processed, for example. And smart decisions, people who are enabled to take much better, much more informed decisions. Systems of engagement and systems of insight really are the present and the future. Systems of record would probably be, history. Important, they're not going anywhere, but they're the base, right? We need to move beyond those. So when you look at level of human involvement in business processes, it goes from very little, where you have straight-through processing, to very high. But what's the workforce of the future going to look like, right? When we talk about new imperatives from an operational excellence perspective. So, data entry won't work. Task allocation and monitoring can be done through software, should be done through software. Why do you want to hire people to do that, right? Activities related to coordination, aggregation, data compilation, and so on and so forth. On a slightly naughty note, a lot of management-related activities which happen in industries, and I always tell people that try to move much more into subject matter expertise. Try to move much more into right brain type of work. So in focus, problem solving, intuition, creativity, right? Aesthetics, user experience, design thinking. So some of these are buzzwords, some of these are jargon, but as I said, there's much more happening out there. Teamwork and collaboration, emotional quotient, right? The ability to work well in a group, the ability not to be a complete and total individual contributor, extremely important. And Pradeep and I were talking about robotics yesterday, and not robotics as in C3PO, but software robotics, robotic process automation. And really when you have, software which can do a lot of that stuff, it's very important for us and for our colleagues and whoever we can influence. We need to move up the value chain again. Like it happened 300 years ago, it's important to reskill. It's important for us to move into newer areas and let the machines do what they can do or what we can do today, so that we can take that next leap over the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years. So what does the future hold when we look at operational excellence? And when we look at robotics, we're talking both about software as well as hardware. Anand is here, and a discussion with Craig the other day when I was at your office. You've invested in a software robotics firm and software called Automation Anywhere, right? They're one of the leaders there. So you're looking at robotic process automation. There's this customer called IRI. They're into market research, a competitor of AC Nielsen. They've deployed robotics in data analytics. They do a lot of data crunching work. When we look at blockchain, extremely important again. There was a demo yesterday for funds transfer, but blockchain is not just about the financial services industry. We're talking about real estate transactions and ownership of title deeds, of sale deeds being tracked, for example, through blockchain. Extremely complicated today, and a lot of disputes today, right? Property related murders as well, and so on. Cognitive computing, IVK touched upon it, but Siri is pretty well known. We have competitors from Google, Cortana from IBM, but that's really the future. Alexa from IBM, right, is another example. Machine learning, neural chat, chatbot was one of the entries for yesterday's Tech Utsav. I hope some of you saw that. But that's really what is happening in terms of neural computing, cognitive computing. Natural language processing is fairly well known. Natural language generation, the UK Meteorological Department was able to produce 60 weather reports, one for each location, with a human-based workforce. They augmented that with software. They were able to increase the throughput for the same workforce to cover 5,000 cities. The 60 reports through the human team took 1 day to generate, 24 hours. The 5,000 reports plus the 60, but the 5,000 reports took 2 minutes across 5,000 cities. Readers couldn't determine the difference between the two. So that's on natural language generation. And IoT, I will skip the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything because we have a panel who will be talking around that. But think of it as connected everything. Somebody I know had said about Shantanu, just think about it, everything with an IP address. These bottles, these chairs, that camera there, this clicker, and so on. Our clothes as well. So, so digital transformation and the CIO, and this is the last slide. But the IT team, right, and we're aware of this, are always under the hammer today, right? And we face these pressures. So there are flat budgets or reduced budgets, do more with less. We had a discussion with one of our healthcare customers in the US recently when I was traveling. And one of the key stakeholders said, Shantanu, innovation is wonderful. What you're trying to do on digital is wonderful. But we're spending all our bandwidth and all our effort on keeping the lights on just run the business. So we just don't know what to do. And it keeps repeating. But then, as I like to say, there is a cost of not doing something as well as a cost of doing something. And at the end of the day, business decisions are about trade-offs, right? So we have to decide what sort of a trade-off we want to make. Expectations from IT are increasing, again, increasingly all over the world. So increase efficiencies, cut costs, help to make the workforce more productive, give us better software, give us better visualization, modernize, and so on and so forth. So this is the IT perspective which I wanted to bring in, which is that when we talk about digital transformation, apart from customer experience and operational excellence, it's also about what's happening from an IT transformation perspective. And then finally, digital, when we look at it across industry sectors, these are some example use cases. This is a snapshot of an industry view, but I'd like to leave the audience with this point, which is that as a company, we are doing work right here, right now, with several customers. They may not be in this room today. And there's an amazing amount of innovation and work on digital happening with several of those customers. So maybe during the tea break, I'd encourage you to speak with our BU heads. We have Srini for healthcare, Soma for ENU, Mahesh for BFS. We have Guru here who focuses on retail. I don't think we have Chakra today. But during the tea break, coffee break, we'd love to share with you some examples of real work that we're doing with real customers. So with that, I ask Guru whether it's okay. Any one question, or should we just move to any comment?
We can have a
Should we
couple of
close our eyes
questions.
again?
If I may add, Shantanu,
Yes, Jan.
I already told you several times that I'm
Yeah.
very much impressed about this good work and bringing the bits and bytes down to this clear message. Maybe as a additional input, maybe we can also put the C into these B2B, B2C, not the C, the A, the administrative part, because we still are governed by politics, and I think this is also a part which drives business and also has an impact on customer experience that shouldn't be forgotten.
I agree with you. So, IT from a digital transformation perspective does have a role in terms of operations, in terms of modernization. Actually, if you remember, I did take your suggestion the last time around. We included modernization as a part of the overall digital strategy for global delivery. So, thank you so much. Noted and accepted. Any other comment?
Use digital to reduce politics.
To reduce what?
To reduce politics?
Maybe.
I think they'll take I'm so sorry, Jan. They'll take 2 minutes to set up the chairs, so probably we have another couple of minutes.
I think so. I mean, if we look into the past, who was guilty about wars? It was not you and me. It was the government. Organization can help here. At least in Ukraine, we are going this way. After all this bad situation, Orange Revolution, now the revolution, Russia trying to get their feet back on the ground. But in Ukraine, there is actually this going on. There was no transparency, there was corruption, and it will still be, even we have digitalization. But I think things like, for instance, blockchain or automation can really help to get things better for our future life. That's why I was saying the administrative part should be not forgotten.
Sure. India has this concept of digital governance and smart cities. Yesterday, Ashok touched upon that. So, digital in governance is a big potential. Let's hope it happens. I think we are ready. So, shall we break? Thanks so much, everyone.